Hey everyone, welcome back. It's good to have you back to the channel. Sorry it's been so long since I've last posted a video. I've actually spent the last few weeks moving into a brand new place where I'll be furnishing a brand new studio. And frankly, there hasn't been that much in the way of stimulus news updates to talk about. That is until this week. We have some breaking news on the stimulus checks, the unemployment insurance, and the brand new $900 billion stimulus bill, which is on the precipice of being passed. And I expect it to be passed later this week and finalized as soon as this afternoon. You're going to want to stick around and find out more about all of that in this video. For those who don't know, my name is Kevin Conway. I make stimulus news update videos and other personal finance videos all the time. So if you want to stay informed, be sure to subscribe to the channel and please share this video and give it a like if it helped you out in any way. Now, with that being said, let's jump right into it and start with the stimulus bill. All right, so jumping right into it, what is being talked about on Capitol Hill right now? Well, we have a lot of bipartisan consensus, and it likely is the case that we're going to have another stimulus bill that's worth $900 billion. Now, what is in that stimulus bill? First off, there is going to be another round of stimulus checks. There's some differences between the last stimulus checks and this proposal, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. There also is going to be an extension of the federal unemployment insurance benefits. Again, it's going to be slightly different than before, but nonetheless, you are going to get that little federal boost on top of your state unemployment benefit if this bill passed, which I expect it to pass. There's also things in there such as an extension of the PPP loans of $150 billion to $300 billion. There's also money in there for virus testing and distribution of the vaccine and relief for hospitals. Now, notably, what is not in the bill is relief for state and local governments and liability protections for businesses. If you recall, those were the two things that were most controversial and most debated between the Republicans and the Democrats before the election, and those were the things that prevented us from getting a stimulus bill a few months ago. Now, those are not going to be discussed in this bill. They're not going to be negotiated on in this bill. It's going to be discussed at a later date. In this bill, we completely avoid those issues and we get right into the heart of the matter. Now, with that being said, what does that stimulus check look like? Well, the stimulus check right now, Capitol Hill, the people on Congress are actually talking about giving $600 per individual. Now, that's different than last time where we had $1,200 per individual and $500 for children if you made basically $75,000 individually or $150,000 married filing jointly. Now, it's going to be different in this case because if you have less than 6 kids, which is probably most of you, at least I hope, given that I have a really big family, and God, that's very tough to do. If you have less than 6 kids, then you probably will have less money coming into your pocket from stimulus checks than you would on the old scheme. Now, if you have more than 6 kids, because you get $600 per kid as opposed to $500, that's where you start to break even. And if you have more than that, then you'll actually get more money under this scheme than you would under the last one. We even have senators adding a little bit of commentary to this stimulus check. The second-ranking Republican from South Dakota actually went ahead and said that the stimulus checks of $600 or $700 were part of the discussion, saying that it'll be double for family and kids. And we've had a little bit more discussion on what that exactly means, and it looks like it'll probably be around $600 per individual. But again, we're going to know for certain when we have the text of the bill released. So I'm going to bring it to you as quickly as I can, so be sure to subscribe, and I'll give you the latest of what actually is going to occur with the stimulus checks. Also, comment below if you think $600 is good enough or we should hold out for more. Now, interestingly, what I think is one of the more important things in this stimulus bill is actually the extension of unemployment insurance from the federal government, that extra boost to your state unemployment benefits. Now, in this bill, we're talking about $300 additional federal boost on top of your state benefit, and presumably an extension of those state benefits like we had in the CARES Act. Now, this compares to the CARES Act insofar as it is that federal boost, which is unusual. It's never happened before the CARES Act, but it is only $300 and not $600. Nonetheless, this works out to a little more than $1,200 per month in extra federal unemployment insurance on top of your state benefits, something that's going to help those 12 million plus people that are currently scheduled to actually lose their unemployment insurance benefits the day after Christmas. So all of that being said, this extra federal boost I think is very, very targeted. It's going to help out a lot of people, especially because lots of state and local governments are initiating stay-at-home orders, which means you can't work, you can't earn an income, and if you don't have an income, well, you can't spend it, and you're going to end up in a much worse situation than you would otherwise. And this is a lot better because it really is kind of like a stimulus check every month. It's, around $1,200 plus. And so this is kind of like that monthly stimulus check, but it's a little bit different insofar as it's unemployment insurance. So with that being said, that's kind of where we are on the unemployment insurance front. So chances are you've heard all of this before, that we're right on the cusp of getting another stimulus check or another unemployment insurance boost or something to that effect. But this time is different because we actually have both sides agreeing with one another. We're past the election. Lots of people are in the lame duck session of their terms, meaning they're not going to actually be elected next time. So they have no real incentive to hold things up politically to get what they really want. They're just in it to basically pass a bill and go home and actually make a difference. So I think we're really on the closest that we've ever been in the last couple months to getting a stimulus bill passed. In fact, Mitch McConnell said that we made major headway getting an agreement done. He said that last night. And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer actually went ahead and said we're on the precipice of getting an agreement passed. Mitch McConnell went ahead and said to all of the people on his constituency, all the people in Congress that he's in charge of, he said, be prepared to actually stay in Washington this weekend to get a bill done. We're not going to be going on vacation. We're going to make sure that we get this bill done in time. Now, what's significant is that this bill might be attached to the Senate appropriations bill that actually will fund the government. Because as of right now, the government is scheduled to actually run out of money that has already been appropriated to it to pay its bills as of this Saturday, meaning we could have a government shutdown as soon as the beginning of next week on Monday. And nobody really wants that, especially now when we already have so many jobs being lost. As a result, they're probably going to attach this stimulus bill to that extension of federal government funding, which means that there's a very high likelihood of it passing. And if it doesn't, we're going to be in a tough situation because, as I mentioned earlier, there's around 12 million people that are scheduled to get their unemployment insurance benefits cut to zero the day after Christmas, because that's what we agreed to in the CARES Act back in March, thinking by now we'd either have the virus under control or we would have an economy that would be able to support all of those people. None of which is true as of right now. Also, there's lots of people facing eviction, and all those extensions that were passed in the CARES Act extending the eviction moratorium are scheduled to expire, and we are worried about that. That's why we need another bill passed. Even some of the most hardened critics on both sides of the aisle have said, look, this isn't perfect, this isn't exactly what I want, but I'm willing to support it. In fact, Rand Paul, known as being a fiscal conservative, somebody who doesn't want to spend money that he doesn't have to in the federal government because we just don't have very much money. We have a large debt. He actually said, look, I don't like it at all, but I'm willing to get behind it and pass it. I'm not going to hold up this passage of this bill. So what happens next? Well, we're going to really know the text of this bill probably later today or first thing tomorrow, and it probably will be negotiated and passed, I think, by at least Sunday, probably earlier than that. What's interesting is both sides say this isn't enough. We have the Republicans saying, look, we want this bill to pass, but we also want liability protection for businesses so that businesses can open without fear of being sued out of existence. And we want them to be held to some standard, but we don't want it to be the highest standard of care, because imposing all those restrictions on businesses is going to hamper the economic growth that we can have. And the Democrats, by contrast, say, look, we need state and local government aid. So many of these state and local governments have had their tax revenues drop precipitously because, well, there's no economic activity going on. And as a result, we need to help out those state and local governments, because if we don't, then the economy is going to be very sluggish in its recovery. What's interesting is you have everyone from Mitt Romney to Bernie Sanders supporting this additional round of stimulus checks. And you have the president-elect Joe Biden saying, look, no matter what, this stimulus bill is going to be only a down payment on future stimulus bills that he hopes to pass later on. Now, the interesting thing is the Democrats will hold the presidency and the House of Representatives, but not the Senate, unless they capture both Senate seats in the Georgia runoff in January, something that is more than likely not going to happen. It could happen, but it probably won't happen. And as a result, we're going to continue having these discussions where it's not going to be sweeping bills passed very easily. It's still going to be the case that compromise is necessary. What do you guys think of all of that going on? What do you think of this stimulus bill? Do you think this is good enough for now and hope to get something later? What is your take on it all? Please let me know in the comments below. I've been reading a couple comments where people have said, look, if the people in Congress didn't have any paychecks at all until they passed a bill, they'd probably pass a bill a lot faster. I tend to agree with that, especially because so many people aren't even allowed to work right now. So let me know in the comments below. I also want to touch on a few developments that are related to the stimulus discussions because of their impact on the economy. Now, first things first, obviously everyone knows that we now have a vaccine to deal with the virus, and the one that has been approved for distribution and is already being distributed and utilized right now is the one from Pfizer. We have that being distributed nationwide, but the problem with the Pfizer vaccine is that it requires storage in extremely cold temperatures, well below any of the common refrigeration capabilities of places like CVS and Rite Aid. This is why it's going to be more difficult for the Pfizer vaccine to get widespread distribution quickly, as opposed to something from Moderna, which is said to have a much lower requirement for refrigeration, and as a result can get out to people much faster. The sooner we have a vaccine, the sooner that we have herd immunity, the sooner that this virus is under control, the faster the economy gets going again. And I think one of the big reasons why we're now talking about a second stimulus bill, despite both sides hooing and hawing for a couple months about not passing it, not having a sense of urgency, is because of the increase in virus cases. We've seen a rapid increase basically everywhere across the country, and people are starting to realize, well, we're not going to have a normal life until we get this thing under control, and as a result, we need to actually pass a bill to hold people over until we get that level of immunity that we need. This is actually borne out by the data, as total retail sales, which includes restaurant sales, in-person shopping, and online as a whole, have actually decreased on a seasonally adjusted basis, which is not good because we live in a consumer-driven economy where 70% of the economic growth is driven by consumers. So if consumers stop consuming, well, we're going to have a tough situation on our hands, and that's what's happening right now. And that's, I think, what's motivating some of the urgency behind getting another stimulus bill passed. So that's pretty much all that we have on the stimulus bill negotiations as of right now. I'm going to give you the latest as soon as I find out and give you the most relevant details when I hear about them. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video if it helped you out in any way. Please, just a simple like is all I ask. It would really help me out in so many ways. If you want to also know more about personal finance, be sure to look at some of my other videos and subscribe to the channel, because I have made and will continue to make videos on real estate investing, which is what I do full time, passive income, credit card videos, what's the best checking account to get, all sorts of things having to do with money. I make that all the time, and that's basically what I do here. So with that being said, I'll see you next time. Thanks.